Hello, and thank you for joining us for yet another episode of 21 Minutes with KKB. My name is Kwabna Gyimah-Boadi. I'm very excited bringing to you this very episode because there's a particular gentleman I'm about to speak to. He's a man I look up to when it comes to academics. You know, he's a very learned professor, and he has quite a number of interesting stories to share as to how the journey has been so far. He leads one of the, well, of course, he's the immediate past Executive Director of one of the leading think tanks in Ghana, one of the very, very popular civil society groups Ghana has seen. And they've done a lot of research and they've done a lot of work to shape the governance process we currently have in the country. I return from this break to introduce to you my guests for today. Stay with us. Professor Gyimah-Boadi happens to be our guest today on 21 Minutes with KKB, and like I was saying, he's a gentleman who has a lot of stories to share when it comes to how this very institution, the CDD, came to the fore. I heard him say something very interesting the other time, but perhaps I may have to ask him to shed some more light on how a $20,000 loan from his wife helped Ghana to have such a leading think tank today. Prof, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. It's good to see you, as always.
Good to see you too.
Great. I was talking about a $20,000 loan. You said you repaid it?
Oh yeah, we repaid it long ago.
But a lot of people may not know about that story, and a lot of people indeed may not know about the story of CDD. It's been 20 years of solid thinking, researching, and coming up with policies and things that have inadvertently shaped a lot of the things politicians do in the country. How has the journey been so far?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the term inadvertent. Everything we have done here has been advertent.
Okay.
It had been deliberate. We set out to make a certain contribution to Ghana's democratic development and governance. So nothing that has happened real here.
So it's a planned course. You've stayed the course for 20 years.
Yes.
I know it will be difficult, particularly looking back 20 years. I'm not sure we had such a democratic system in the country. How challenging was it at the time, and fast forward to now?
Well, I mean, of course, we came in with the history, the political history of Ghana in the background. You know, that this is a country that had attempted to run a democratic system of government at least 3 times and failed. We came in to make sure that the hopeful side of the equation was realized.
I see. So you've done a lot of research in Ghana and outside Ghana for a long time. So let's say in 20 years. I want us to focus on Ghana, for instance. What do you see to be the ever-growing need of Ghanaians? I mean, as you do your research, there obviously ought to be a certain trend. What are the things Ghanaians look out for the most as far as governance is concerned?
Well, I mean, in that sense, Ghanaians are no different from any other people anywhere on earth. They desire to be governed well. They desire to prosper materially, and they desire to, as a country, we desire to be unified, to be as united as possible. And so, in that sense, there's nothing different about Ghana, and nothing has changed.
I know a lot of people still cannot wrap their minds around the exact roles of civil society groups and think tanks, let me put it that way. The other time you made a very interesting comment. You said you are a think tank, you're not a talk tank. What's the difference? What happens? You think and talk, or?
Well, I mean, as Ghanaians, you know, we are social and political animals. Mm-hmm. Everybody, for instance, when we ask people whether they are interested in public affairs and to what degree they spend time with their friends and relatives talking about public affairs, discussing public affairs, that's apparently the pastime of many Ghanaians. So in that sense, we knew that we would have some sort of an audience. The problem with a lot of the talk is that they are just sort of people react to things, and some of the talk is not based on deep reflection.
Okay.
And so in terms of what can be taken out of that kind of loose talk for policy making purposes, for policy correction, you may not get much. So when we came in deliberately and purposefully to use research, analysis, and reflection to drive our advocacy.
That takes us to the role of Afrobarometer and how, of course, it touches on a lot of very key sensitive issues. I was taking a look at your last report, and the 2018 report focuses on a number of things, but I'm just picking three things here: migration, corruption, and galamsey, or illegal mining. The report suggested that about 41% of Ghanaians want to emigrate. And when I look at that report and I look at the statistics it gives here, I wonder if successive governments have done enough to, should I say, deter people or give people reason to stay in this country.
I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I'm not sure if this particular data from the Afrobarometer survey in Ghana will provide any answer. It just personally, I think that the idea of wanting to emigrate is a little bit. It's something that is ingrained in the average Ghanaian. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a village, and the sense was that this is no place for you to stay for the rest of your life. We should aim to get to Accra or Kumasi or Koforidua or some place that was more urbanized. And then, of course, when I got a chance to come to Accra, it didn't take long for me to decide that I have to go somewhere. I think the idea of travel is quite ingrained in us. I don't know how, but at least for my generation, that was generally the idea. So that in itself, this statistic in itself may not tell you much. I think we shouldn't forget that our first president himself was he stowed away to go and study in America. You shouldn't forget that Tete Kwashi, who brought cocoa to Ghana, was an immigrant. Yeah. The Kwejiri Agri, it's a long line of the history of Ghanaians going abroad, studying, working, whatever. It's our history is replete with many examples of that. So in that sense, maybe it's a cultural and psychological habit that it's manifesting this. Having said that, if you are a government looking at this data, that about 4 out of 10 Ghanaians, adult Ghanaians, have an intention to emigrate, well, your work is then cut out for you. Yeah. If you do want your citizens to stay and be productive and to contribute to the building of the nation, then you have to do what you have to do. That same survey showed that a lot of the people who are seeking to emigrate are motivated by a desire for material advancement. They are motivated especially by job. They want to have jobs. So that's a government policy. Fortunately, in the last campaign, job creation was the mantra of almost all the political parties. So the question then is, what is it that is being done concretely today to respond to this popular need.
The president has mentioned things such as one district, one factory, that's creating factories in every district of the country, hoping that some of these factories will absorb a lot of the unemployed youth, particularly in the country. Do you think it's enough?
That's not for me to say it's enough. I just hope, but I hope that even that, whether it's enough or not, I hope that it is implemented. I hope that it remains, it goes beyond the level of promise into reality.
Last year, a story came out based on some findings of CDD-Ghana. It was so clear in my head, I decided I need to bring it here, write it down, and then read it out to you. So this was the caption: 1 year of the Kufuor government, no signal of positive change in governance. That was based on a report CDD had come out with. Has anything changed between then and now?
Was that a headline? Was that a headline?
That was the headline of a story by.
Well, if it's the headline, then you would also you agree that it's not necessarily what we said.
Of course, I agree.
So,
but it suggested, when I looked at the findings, it suggested that not much had been done to differentiate between, of course, the NPP rode on the back of a number of issues, promises, and they suggested that there were a lot of ills in society under the S.O. Mahama governments. Now, they come in and a year down the line, and it appears there's been some marginal change here and there, but on the whole, it appears it's business as usual.
We were critical, but also note that it was divided. We had several sessions focusing on different aspects of the government, the administration's performance. So we looked at the economic side, we looked at the political governance side, we look at the local government and the like. So a general statement like they've done well, they haven't done well, it's not.
So it's about the specifics. Okay, let's delve into the issue of, for instance, corruption. And if I take a look at most of...
So corruption, I quite remember, because the appointment of Martin Amidu had just been made. And we did say that until that appointment, we were beginning to despair about the possibility that the Nana-Addo administration will make good on the promise to tackle corruption frontally. But we also noted that the appointment of Martin Amidu had raised our level of confidence a little bit, and couldn't wait for the office to get operational and for Citizen Vigilante to do his work. So that was, if you like, you say it was a watch this space, and we are still watching that space.
So it appears Martin Amidu has come to the rescue of the Kufuor government.
At that time, but you remember this is at the beginning of the year. I would tell you, I'm still hopeful, but again, I think some of the optimism that was generated by that appointment has eroded.
Why?
Has been eroded over time. Well, because it's taking too long for the office to be set up. It's taking too long for the office to get really operational. I mean, it's only last month or so when the board was inaugurated. It's just taking too long. And given that a lot of, it became the mantra. Whenever you ask the question, what are you doing about this episode of corruption, special prosecutor? When is, what is being done about the boss scandal, special prosecutor? So there was just too much of that. Having said that, you make the appointment, you rekindle our hope. So we want to see action, and some of us remain impatient for actions on a matter that is, on a canker that has been so hurtful to Ghana's economic political and social progress.
Do you know Martin Amidu personally?
No, actually, incidentally, I have never met him, seen him in person.
Okay.
I only know him from the media, from television, from his pictures in front pages of newspapers.
But yet you are confident that he will do such a good job.
Well, because of his record. His track record is what gave us the confidence. And also the fact that the president had the courage to select somebody who, based on his record, you know that he's not going to spare the president's people and the president's party.
Speaking of that, of course, in the past few months since the NPP took office, there has been one issue or another of alleged case of corruption against one government appointee or another. In the past few hours or days, there has been an issue of a deal about the renegotiation of the Ameri contract and how it has led to the dismissal of the energy minister. Let me first take your thoughts on that.
First of all, I'm happy to see the head of a senior government figure role for something.
So you're happy the energy minister has been sacked?
Just not him, it's not his particular person, but I am happy that at least one head has rolled, because one of the problems with corruption and these scandals in Ghana is that very often there seem to be no consequences. Issues of this nature arise. There is a great deal of public agitation. It's discussed, maybe flogged to death, and then it fizzles out.
Then it's back to business as usual.
And that it is this sort of development that will make other public officials sit up and know that there may be consequences for their actions and inactions. There may be consequences for misdeeds, there may be consequences for mismanagement, there may be consequences for corruption. So at that level, I see this as a very positive side thing. I don't know the details of the matter, but this is definitely the head that was wearing the crown, and it must take a fall for things that go wrong in that realm.
Some are saying the president himself needs to also take the fall, because at a point in time we are told that, well, he mentioned somewhere that he was misled. So if you're a leader and you are saying that, I was misled, is that not an indictment on your leadership?
Well, it may be something of an indictment, but I don't know if it's an indictment to the level that should lead to a resignation. But we wait for more details and more developments. Who knows? Maybe the minister knows something that we don't know. That if he tells us about it, and if it suggests that the president was not misled, or the president is misleading the nation, well, we will make the right call as well. But for now, I think that the president has made the right decision in terms of saying that the person who was in charge, that I placed in charge of this business, has disappointed me and has misled me, and he must go.
Should the special prosecutor go into this issue?
I'm not sure about that, partly because I think this suggests to me that potential misconduct has been averted.
What if there are more players involved?
The contract has not been consummated yet, so the implied loss has not occurred. Has not been incurred. So I'm not sure if the special prosecutor should be going after speculative cases when, in fact, we have legions of cases where there is proven financial loss to the state.
Where would you want him to turn his attention to, first and foremost?
If he can certainly take up some of the cases that have been thrown up by the Auditor General's report, for instance. Personally, I like to see him focusing more on the alleged corruption involving people who are still in office, as opposed to those who are out of office. He should go after them, but I think it will be even more exciting if he goes after those still in office.
So you should focus on those currently in office?
Not focus, but I would like to see more of that maybe than the others. In Chi, there's a proverb about, what baby gone. I think we've got to protect what remains a lot more, because that is what will all corruption must be tackled. All instances of theft of public funds must be tackled. Retrieval should occur. But I think symbolically, politically, for all kinds of reasons, tackling corruption, tackling misdeeds, misconduct on the part of serving and in government officials, it's will help a lot, because we don't see enough in this country. For some of us, the number 110 just sounded scandalous. We felt scandalized that we could have this very, very high number of ministers. But since the president says we have to watch the performance, it's one of those areas where we still have to watch the space.
It's been about a year now since a number of them assumed office. Is it money well spent?
In 4 years, we'll get a chance as a nation to decide, to make a judgment as to whether it's been worth having as many as 110 ministers and others.
So you are suggesting it's too early to judge?
I'm suggesting that there's an opportunity to make a judgment down the line, so I'll wait for that opportunity.
I see. Okay, Prof. Let's take a look at the appointment of a new Electoral Commission chair. And since you are into civil society and policy think tank, I know you may have worked closely with the Electoral Commission at one point in time or the other. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We do work with the Electoral Commission closely. We've been working closely with the Electoral Commission on national, on the general and then local government elections.
Oh, fantastic.
Since 2000, we have enjoyed a great deal of access to the Commission in terms of collaborating with them to promote election transparency and to promote election integrity and to secure the credibility of our elections.
Okay, I presume then that you have a fair idea how the process has grown over the period and how it has become more involving for a lot of you people being roped into the system. I'm asking this question. I don't know how fair or how fair it may be, but I'm asking this. With the last general elections, of course, supervised by Charlotte Osei, how would you rate it, and how would you, let me leave it at that. How would you rate it? Looking at what went into it, do you think it was a job well done?
When it comes to, for instance, on the election day itself, I observed the most peaceful election in this republic. When it came to just the basic process of administering the election, seemed to have gone fine. The usual anxieties, and the flare-up of conflict during the counting and so on, there was very little of it. So all of that went well. But then you should expect that of a country that was, a republic that was going through its 7th successive election. Was it 7th? Yeah. So what we didn't know how to do well in 1992 or 1996, certainly we ought to, it's not surprising that we could do better in 2016. But at the same time, you notice that there were some highly disturbing developments after the vote. That's after the election and before the declaration of the results. One was, for me and for those of us who were looking at the numbers and so on, the press conference at which the commission said voter turnout was at a historic low of about 49%. That was totally scandalous. Where did they get that figure from? That figure did not match with anybody else who was doing just a basic monitoring, tallying could come up with. That requires explanation. The claim of overvoting in some parts of Ashanti region, which was used as the big justification for the delay in announcing the final results of the election, that again, we need to come clean on that. Exactly what happened, which part of Ashanti had that overvoting, so that we know it wasn't just thrown out it wasn't just tossed to us as an explanation and a justification for the delay. That to me was, again, strange. And then altogether, just as you raised the question, in an election where there had been so much transparency, because this is the first election where, by law, party agents had to be given certified copies of the polling station results. It was super transparent. So how come the tallying could be delayed? That is yet to be explained. I have no explanation for it, but all I'm saying is that though the delay in announcing the final results of the presidential election casts a pall, it puts a damper on the praise that I would give to an otherwise flawlessly organized 2016 election.
Is that enough basis to, for instance, pass judgment on the ability or the capabilities of the chair of the commission? No,
this is a commission, not the chair. This is the commission. Everything I'm saying is about the commission. Because an institution, the institutional memory, it has been building up from 1992, ought to have reflected in the declaration of the results of this election as well. And to my mind, it did not.
The Electoral Commission chair was dismissed, and one of the reasons cited was incompetence. Would you go as far as suggesting that perhaps she may have been negligent in the discharge of her duties?
No, but I won't be able to say that but I have read the report of the panel of the committee that heard the petitioners,
the Chief Justice
and
Committee,
heard the respondents and all, the Chief Justice Committee, and the kinds of things for which the former commissioner, the former chairman of the commission was indicted. Those indictments are very heavy. And on that basis, I think that the dismissal was completely on point. That you engage in procurement violations of that magnitude, that you do sole sourcing of that magnitude, that you make unilateral decisions in matters like this when you are talking about a commission. Anybody who says those are not egregious enough and are not enough grounds for removing a public official at that level of responsibility should come again.
How then do you see the new EC chair performing? And of course, he has a few deputies now, Dr. Bosman Asari and a few others coming in with her. Having about what, 4 new people coming to take over the realms of leadership at the commission, is it not likely to have any effect on the performance of the commission, particularly seeing the things lined up, the number of activities you're supposed to do between now and 2020 when the next elections come off?
I don't know. First of all, the new chair is not new to elections, even though she has not been involved in elections from that vantage.
Yeah, that's Madame Gyimah-Boadi.
Madame Gyimah-Boadi is not new to Ghanaian elections. Mm-hmm. So, and also, mind you that these commissioners are presiding over an institution. Mm-hmm. And so, the institution does have professionals. And some of those professionals have been running the elections, and they've been helping, providing technical assistance to other countries and so on. Okay. Fortunately for them, they also have, as one of the deputy commissioner in charge of operations, it's a veteran of the commission, okay, an experienced technical hand. So I think that if they want to learn, and if they are committed to doing a good job, and if they are committed to conducting themselves with integrity, they should be able to run an election, even if one needed to be held next month.
I'll ask one last thing of you. It has been a difficult 20-year period for you setting up one of the most credible institutions. Personally, I really have to congratulate you. One of the most credible policy think tanks Ghana has ever seen. And oftentimes when I read some of your publications and your reports, and I am very, very, very inspired by them. You've stayed consistent. You've stayed very, very optimistic and very, how do I put that, critical as and when you're supposed to be. It's been 20 years under your leadership, and you saw all of this happen. You're moving on now, and you've handed over to another very brilliant man, Professor Kwesi Prempeh. How do you see the next 20 years of the CDD?
Well, the first thing to say is that CDD has been successful because of the great pool of human talent that we have. The human resource we have here, it's strong.
A lot of doctors and professors.
And you notice that CDD is not it's not the kind of place where only one person speaks for the center. So that alone should tell you that with or without Gyimah-Boadi, CDD stays strong. And stays strong on the beat. So that's one thing to say. Fortunately for the center, my successor, Professor Prempeh, is somebody one of the few people that I can say knows about the DNA of the center. When I started thinking and plotting this center, mm-hmm. I was then based in Washington, D.C., in the United States. He was then a lawyer in a fancy law firm in Washington, D.C. We knew each other before then, okay, but we reconnected at that time. And so he was actually involved in the development of the original blueprints, okay, upon which the center was built, including writing the mission statements and all. Oh, okay. But he continued. I returned to Ghana in '97. He stayed on, but in the course of the 20 years, he stayed close to the center, first as one of the founding board members to date. And he came down a couple of times to spend his sabbatical with us. Okay. He stayed on as an editor, one of the co-editors of the flagship magazine we used to run called the Democracy Watch. Mm-hmm. He's been involved in some of our seminars, led some of them, and so on. So it's lucky to get somebody replacing me who comes with formidable, sterling credentials and experience from elsewhere, but who is also steeped in the work and the aspirations of the institution. So in that case, it's a double win for the center. And with this kind of background, I have no doubt at all that the institution will grow from strength to strength and certainly do much better than we were able to do in our time.
But you're staying on as Executive Director of the Afrobarometer. What more do we expect from there?
We're going strong. We are about to complete the 7th round of our surveys, covering about 34 countries. We will, in the next few months, begin to release the cross-country findings, what we call the continental findings. We'll be releasing them in segments and by topics over the next few months. And then early part of next year, we will embark on the 8th round of the survey.
Wow. Fantastic. Prof, many thanks for your time.
You're most welcome.
Today on 21 Minutes with KKB. I've really enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed this. You're most
welcome. I'm sorry that you didn't talk too much about CDD and more about national things, which are my opinions.
I mean, you know, so, it's okay. It's okay. But it's been a really interesting conversation, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Hopefully on other issues. You don't really speak so much on a lot of the things, but perhaps maybe now that you have some time.
Oh, no. Time has. I thought I was going to have a lot of time, but actually, for now, not, because it's the Afrobarometer is a big enterprise, a big undertaking. So maybe give me a year or so when I would have phased out of the Afrobarometer. Then I'll be available at your beck and call anytime you want me to.
Of course,
talk
Prof,
to
thank
you.
you.
I'll be happy. But for now, really, thanks for the opportunity.
Sure,
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you once again. And we wish you well. And Professor Gyimah-Boadi has been our guest on 21 Minutes with KKB. He's the immediate past Executive Director of one of the leading policy think tanks, civil society groups in Ghana, currently the Center for Democratic Development Ghana. Well, he's left the scene now. He's handed over to Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, whom we hope to also speak to in one of our next episodes. So do watch out for that as well. My name is Gyimah-Boadi. I'm very grateful you made time to join us for this episode. I'll see you soon, hopefully with another guest you're expecting.